The debate between nature and nurture has raged throughout human history, and the noble patrician families of ancient Rome would surely champion the side of nature in this argument. While this may hold true in some cases, what gave the patricians an edge in political and military meritocracy was their lifelong education in the arts of oration, history, and war. In other words, nurture. Gaius Marius, on the other hand, was a plebeian whose primary concern was finding food. Yet, through hard work and innate talent, he rose to dominate Roman politics for decades, and during that time, revolutionized the Roman military. The previous installment in this series discussed the Marian reforms, military policies that transformed the conscripted Roman militias into a professional army, creating the greatest war machine of the ancient world. Marius also holds the record for consulships, 7 in total, despite his plebeian status, which should have kept him from even gaining one consulship. The only qualification sufficient to hold this record was military glory. Marius's victories against Jugurtha, the Italians during the Social War, and the Germanic tribes cemented his legacy as a brilliant strategist and tactician. What truly set Marius apart was his cunning, a trait reminiscent of the great Scipio and Hannibal. Gaius Marius's protege, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, was always a step ahead of his mentor. Sulla's first significant command came during the Social War. However, it was during his campaign against Mithridates, the 6th of Pontus, that Sulla truly shone as a general. In 87 BCE, Sulla led his army into Greece to confront Mithridates' forces. During the siege of Athens, he showcased his ruthlessness and technical skills by constructing massive siege engines and systematically dismantling the city's defenses. Sulla's tactical skill was further evident in the Battle of Chaeronea in 86 BCE, where he utilized the terrain to his advantage and executed a flanking maneuver that transformed a potential defeat into a spectacular victory. This remarkable adaptability would eventually culminate in his most significant and controversial action, the March on Rome in 88 BCE. This extraordinary maneuver established a dangerous precedent for future generals, including Caesar. Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa always lived in the shadows, not with a dagger, waiting for an opportunity to strike Augustus and his family, but with a sword poised to attack anyone foolish enough to oppose him. It is true that Augustus's political acumen kept him alive in the years following Caesar's assassination and ultimately led him to defeat Brutus, Antony, and Cleopatra, but Agrippa played an equal part. Beyond the public accolades and engineering achievements, Agrippa was a military commander who could face men like Caesar and Lepidus head-on, and even had a few things of his own to teach them. Like all good Romans following Marius, Agrippa was a master of military logistics. But what truly set him apart was his ability to manage long-term military operations, not just land campaigns, but naval engagements as well. Agrippa is undoubtedly the best admiral Rome ever knew. With these talents, Agrippa conquered the mountainous region of Pannonia in just 3 years, an outstanding feat considering how the terrain could quickly turn an invasion into a guerrilla nightmare. In his support of Augustus during the Roman Civil War, he defeated Sextus Pompeius, the last remnant of the Optimates political party, and a few years later he masterminded the Actium campaign. In just a year of warfare and military maneuvering, Agrippa shattered Antony's 100,000-strong army without a single pitched battle. The Battle of Actium, which concluded that campaign, was not only a massacre, but also the battle that would elevate Octavian to the status of Emperor Augustus, Agrippa's masterpiece. The Battle of Actium and Augustus's ascension marked the beginning of 2 centuries of unparalleled peace and prosperity, known as the Pax Romana. However, with the fall of the Severan dynasty and the rise of both the Gothic kingdom and the Sassanid dynasty of Persia, Rome was plunged into a century of plague, civil wars, and perpetual barbarian invasions. After nearly a decade of fighting against these overwhelming tides, the emperor succumbed to the plague after the previous one had been murdered. 2 separatist empires were consolidating. Several German tribes encroached on Roman territory. The Goths were in the heart of the empire, and the Sassanids ravaged the eastern provinces. Aurelian would be the man to change all this. Like the generals of the Republic, Aurelian created a well-trained and disciplined army, while crafting possibly the best cavalry unit Rome had ever known. His tactical brilliance and unparalleled horsemanship allowed him to outmaneuver and outfight his opponents on the battlefield. Aurelian's crowning achievement was his decisive victory against the Palmyrene Empire, a separatist state that had broken away from Rome. Through a series of lightning charges, campaigns, and countercharges, Aurelian crushed the Palmyrene forces, reclaimed the eastern provinces, and restored the unity of the Roman Empire. Recognizing that a sword couldn't win all battles, he skillfully employed propaganda and negotiated deals to defeat the Germans, secure the eastern provinces for his side, and crush Tetricus's allied empire. Aurelian's military prowess and ability to unify the empire earned him the title Restorer of the World, a fitting tribute to his remarkable achievements. Constantine the Great emerged as a formidable general who would eventually transform the Roman Empire. His military career was marked by a series of victories that culminated in his rise to power. Notably, in the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 CE, he faced Maxentius with a decisive strategy that highlighted his keen tactical mind. Constantine's forces, bolstered by his innovative use of cavalry and infantry, overwhelmed the opposition, leading to his sole rule over the Western Roman Empire. What makes Constantine particularly noteworthy is his ability to blend military success with visionary leadership. He recognized the importance of faith in bolstering morale, famously adopting Christianity as a state religion. This shift not only united his troops under a common cause, but also redefined the empire's identity. His efforts to fortify and reorient the empire laid the groundwork for the Byzantine Empire, ensuring his legacy would endure. The only other undefeated general in Roman history was none other than Publius Cornelius Scipio, known as Africanus, the conqueror of Africa. Had he not fallen ill on the eve of the Battle of Magnesia, the climax of the Roman-Syrian War, he would likely be remembered as Asiaticus, the conqueror of Asia. His contributions in the Syrian War were still impressive, as he faced and defeated his old rival Hannibal once more. Scipio was, in fact, the first Roman to incorporate Hannibal's philosophy into the Roman military tradition, merging the initiative and organization of the Romans with the cunning of the Barca family. Where the student surpassed the master was in his ability to devise incisive strikes that would define the entire campaign, a strategy historians have termed a center of gravity strike. This rational approach underpinned the brilliant capture of Cartagena with just 300 men, leading to the subsequent defeat of Hannibal's brother at Ilipa, a victory heavily reliant on intelligence manipulation. The same thought process guided his involvement in the Numidian Civil War and his march on Carthage, which resulted in Hannibal's defeat at Zama. Scipio may not be the greatest general in Roman history, but he was the first great general of Rome, and without him, figures like Marius, Sulla, Caesar, Agrippa, Aurelian, and Belisarius may never have emerged. Our Julius Caesar's placement at the top of this list may seem unfair considering the perfect military records of Scipio and Constantine. But one must consider the nature of the opposition Caesar faced throughout his life. Gauls, Greeks, and most importantly, other Romans. Romans like Pompey, his son, and Lepidus. All this considered, it is remarkable that Caesar lost only 2 battles in his lifetime. There is a common military saying, "No plan survives first contact with battle," implying that generals must be prepared to deal with the unexpected, and few Romans were better at this than Caesar. He was an unparalleled logistician and engineer, and it is fitting that his magnum opus, Alesia, was as much an engineering feat as a military victory. Caesar understood the human side of war, which enabled him to maintain almost fanatically loyal soldiers. Even when his troops grew unruly, he knew how best to keep them in check, a skill reminiscent of Alexander the Great. This understanding also allowed him to comprehend his enemies and take bold, calculated risks. In many cases where his plans failed, Caesar was extraordinarily lucky. He himself was not shy in admitting how much he relied on luck, but we should recall the Roman belief that fortune favors the bold, and regardless of opinions about the man, Caesar was undeniably bold.